Welcome to a MainelyDIY.com video. Today's video is on double crochet.
Hi, today's video is on double crochet, and I'm going to start with a piece in progress, and then I'll go back and start at the first steps a little bit later, but I want you to see how the stitch is made first. So if you look at my previous videos on single crochet, you'll see how when you get a foundation row, you get these, looks like chains on top, and it's the same thing with double crochet. So to do a double crochet, you wrap the yarn around the hook, and then you're going to put the hook under the foundation chains, so the foundation row. So I'll take that out so you can see it's that very next stitch. So I'm wrapping it, putting my hook underneath there, and then I'm going to wrap my yarn again, and I'm going to pull it just through my foundation chains. And I'll take that out and let you see that again. So I'm wrapping it, going underneath my foundation chains, wrapping, and then I'm going to pull that up through just that foundation layer. Okay, so I have 3 chains on my hook, so I'm going to go down between that space between my fingers. I'm going to pull that one that I just picked up through 1 and through 2. And then I'm going to wrap it, and I'll go through 1 and 2. So that kind of slowed it up, but we'll try it again. So we wrap the hook, yarn around the hook. We're going to go underneath the next stitch. We're going to wrap the yarn around, pull it through just that foundation row. I have 3 on my hook. So I'm going to wrap it, and I'm going to go through 2. Wrap it and go through 2. That's a little bit more fluid motion than what I said first, so hopefully that will help you out. So I'm going to wrap the hook around, go under the stitch, wrap the yarn around, pull the stitch up, wrap it around, go through 2, wrap it around, go through 2. So I'm going to keep going to the end. So I'm wrapping the yarn around the hook, putting the hook under the stitch, wrapping the yarn around, pulling the hook up through. I've got 3 on the hook, so I wrap and go through 2, wrap and go through 2. So I wrap, go down through the next stitch, wrap, pull it up through that stitch, wrap and pull through 2. So I'm going to go right down to the end, and the last stitch is a set of 3 chains actually from the previous row, and I'll show you that in just 1 minute. Well, actually I can show it to you a little bit now. So before you, well, you can see there's kind of like 3, maybe you can see 3 chain stitches there. That's my last, because you see how double crochet is a certain height? Well, that height from between my thumbs, that's equal to 3 chains. So that's where these 3 chains I'll be talking about are coming from. So I'm wrapping my yarn around my hook. I'm going in that chain that's closest to me. It's the top of the 3 chain set. So I'm wrapping, pulling it through that chain, wrapping, going through 2, wrapping and going through 2. So now I'm ready to start my next row. So I am going to chain 3, and this 3 is going to count as my first double crochet of this row. So once I've chained 3, I'm going to turn my work around. Now, I'm not going to go in this first stitch because that's where my chain 3 is. So I'm really going in the let's see, I'm going to take one of those chains out because I split my yarn, and redo those so they might be a little bit clearer for you. Let's see, so I have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there's my 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and that one counts as the stitch I'm in. So I'm actually kind of going through to the fifth one of these little wraparound shawls from where my hook is. So to do my double, I wrap my yarn around. I'm skipping those 3, skipping the first one on the foundation row. So I'm going right here. So I'll take that out again so you can see where I'm going. So I'm skipping those 3. Those 3 don't count. This is the base of those 3. So I skipped that, so I'm going in that. So that's the 5th shawl from my hook. So I'm wrapping, going under there, wrapping, going through 3, or pulling the yarn up through. I have 3 on my hook. Wrapping my yarn around, go through 2, wrap my yarn around, and go through the last 2. And I continue on this way, wrapping and going under 2, pulling up through and going, wrapping, going through 2, wrapping and going through 2. It's kind of important that you skip that first stitch when you do that chain, and then you skip the one on the foundation, because if you don't, you're going to get it going wonky ways, and you know, when you start out, you'll be counting the rows. So let me show you what a double crochet. We'll do a little close-up of what the stitch looks like. Let me turn it so it's this way. Okay, you see on what's the right side is the part that has this little twist in it. That's the right side of, or the working side rather, of your stitch. And this, well, I'm sorry. So that's the right side of the working side. The back side doesn't have that, and I'll show that again when we start from a chain. But you just go along, and that's the basic of how you do a double crochet. So I'm going to snip my yarn off here and start with a new piece. And if you need to, you should go back and review how to make a slip knot to get it on your hook, and to do a chain. I have a video on that. It's kind of my very first video, so it's a little rough, but that's okay. So I put the hook on. So I wanted to do a row of 10 double crochets. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 chains. Let me just count those for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now you remember I said that the height of a double is 3 chains, so we need 3 extra chains on however long. And just like we did when we changed a row before, or when we made a new row, we had to go into the 5th one from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is, I got my thumb kind of right on it. So I'm going to wrap my yarn around my hook, go right down the center of that chain stitch. So I'm going to wrap around and then pull up through my foundation layer. So I have 3 on my hook. I'm wrapping and going through 2, wrapping and going through 2. So I'm going to do another stitch. I'm wrapping my hook, going through the foundation chain, the next one in the line, wrapping, pulling it up through the foundation chain, wrapping, going through 1, 2, and wrapping and going through the last 2 on my hook. So I wrap it, go down through the stitch, wrap, pull up through, wrap and go through 2, wrap and go through 2. So wrapping around my hook, going down into the next foundation, wrapping, pulling up, wrap, go through 2, and go through, wrap and pull, go through the last 2. So wrap the yarn around the hook, go into the next stitch, wrap it around, pick up the yarn and pull it through just that base foundation row, wrap, go through 2, wrap and go through 2. So again, we're wrapping around the hook, going down the next foundation stitch, wrap, pull it up through, sorry, wrap and go through 2, wrap and go through 2. So we're wrapping it around, going through the foundation stitch, wrapping, pulling it up, wrap, go through 2, wrap, pull it up through 2. So I'm just going to continue that till I get all the way to the end, which is not very far. So I'm wrapping and going to do the last one, pulling it up through the base layer, wrapping, going through 2, wrapping and going through 2. So that's what my starting row would look like. So I'll start from this end and count. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and my 3 chains count as my 10th one. And you see that twist that I was talking about on the right side? There it is, but on the wrong side you don't see that. Okay, and on the top you've got the chains. So if I was to continue this, I would chain my 3, I've got 3 there now. So then I'm going to turn my work around, and remember I'm going to skip this first one that you'd think you'd go into. So I'm going 1, 2. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Seems like I have a bunch of dead batteries today, but so I finished my row across, and I'm going to chain 3. And this is going to count as my first double crochet. I'm going to turn my work around so I can work in that direction. And so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th one, chain shape, is the one I'm going to go through. So I'm wrapping my yarn around my hook, going through underneath that stitch, wrapping, pulling it up through, wrapping and pulling it up through. So that first section here counts as your first double, and it's a bit important to skip as many stitches as I said, because if you don't, you end up with an edge that goes off in this direction, you know, kind of off in this direction or off on that direction. So you do need to pay attention to that. It kind of comes with time. I'm not sure that I showed you how to count. So you can either count here, or you can count these. They actually call these posts. And you know, each one of these double crochet is kind of a post, which is done later in some of the stitches. So I want to take a bigger piece here and just do the end part for you. So I'm wrapping my yarn around my hook, going through my stitch. This is the last regular stitch, pulling it up through, wrapping, going through 2, I'll wrap and go through 2. Now this being the last in my series for 10, I'm kind of turning it here so you might be able to see it. You see I got 1, 2, 3 chains, so that's where I've got to put the next stitch. So I wrap it, I put it down in that top chain, third one from the bottom, or either that or you can call it the first chain. Kind of depends on how you look at it, I guess. So I've got my hook in there, I wrap the yarn around and pull it through that stitch so that I have 3 on my hook. I wrap it and pull it through 2, wrap it and pull it through 2. So this is typically how you'd see a double crochet done for a when you read pattern instructions, where you've gone under the loop, and that's kind of what it looks like. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little variation on that. See how this one's got this kind of ridge here on that side, and it has one here and here on the other side because it happens every other row. And my other piece didn't have that. You can see there's no distinguishing lines across the row. So to get this variation, I'm going to wrap my yarn around the hook just like I did before, but I'm going from the side towards me, so kind of from the bottom up, and I'm poking my hook up through that chain, kind of right in the middle of it. So I'll pull it out so you can see where I am. See that chain? I'm going to put my hook right up through the bottom of that. Then I wrap my yarn around, pull it through, wrap, go through 2, wrap, and go through 2. Let's do that again. So I'm wrapping my yarn around, I'm putting my hook in from the bottom up. So it's kind of, it would be the loop closest to me. I'd call it the front loop from where I'm positioned. Again, I'm putting my hook right in there. Wrapping my yarn around, pulling it up, and I wrap, pull through 2, wrap through, pull through 2. And I've got one more regular stitch, so I'm wrapping, going up through the bottom, wrapping, pulling through 2, wrapping and pulling through 2. And now I've got to go into that last three chain deal like I've had to do before. So I'm wrapping, going through, pulling it up through, wrapping, going through 2, wrapping, going through 2. So now I'm going to chain 3, just like I've done before, turn my yarn work around, but I'm going to be going, let's see if I can get that so you can see the chains. So I'm skipping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to be in the 5th one. So that's right there where my index finger is. So I'm wrapping my yarn around the hook, going just from the bottom up, splitting right in the middle of that chain stitch. Wrapping my yarn around, pulling it up through the base layer, wrapping, pulling through 2, wrapping, pull through 2, and I'll do one more. So I'm wrapping my yarn through, I go into the next stitch, so I go from the bottom up, wrap, pull it up, wrap, go through 2, wrap, go through 2. So that's another variation. And then the next one I have is a more of a textured look, and you know, if you wanted something that was a little bit stretchy, maybe you wanted a cuff for a sweater or for a mitten, or maybe the brim on a hat, you might use this. So the way to do that one is we wrap the yarn around, and then we're going to go from the top down. We're kind of stabbing it on the top, and I'm picking up the loop that's furthest away from me. I'd call it the back loop, but it is the one that's furthest away from me. So let me poke that in there again. So I'm poking in, wrapping my yarn around, pulling it up through, and completing my stitch by wrapping through 2, and then wrapping and going through the last 2. So I wrap my yarn, poke it down, right from the top down, picking up the loop that's farthest away from me, wrapping my yarn around, pulling it up through the base layer, wrapping, going through 2, wrapping, and going through 2. And you just continue to do that all the way across, and that gives you this nifty little ridge in it. So I'm going to do that that last one in the top of the chain, that's the tricky one, but and that's right in the middle of the chain because there's no top or bottom really, so I'll wrap it and going through two. Now you want to make sure you do it in the top of those chains, not in this space between, because if you do it in that space between, you're going to end up with a hole that's going to look exaggerated and not so nice. So I would just chain 3 and continue along. So this is the one that is the ribbing, and we're going from the top down and picking up the furthest loop away from us. This one is the one that has this little ridge line, and for this one we're going from the bottom up and picking up that loop that's closest to us. And then finally is the original, which is a little bit smoother, and we're going, this one we go right underneath both stitches of the base, which looks like a chain. So that's it, and thank you for joining me today. I hope you're enjoying my videos. Please leave me some comments. Thank you.